Okay, let's get this over with. Before we start, I'd like to say that I'm only going to be talking about the main Justice League and not about any of the spin offs. There were way too many of them, and the only one that was really successful in any way was probably Justice League Dark. In 2011, DC launched their New 52 initiative, which was basically a reboot of their existing properties for modern audiences. The one major change that happened to Justice League was that instead of the Martian Manhunter being a founding member, Cyborg, formerly of the Teen Titans, was slotted in to take his place. Like it or hate it, he had been somewhat popular thanks to the TV show and various appearances elsewhere, so it did make sense from a marketing standpoint to have him on the team. But I'm just gonna say that it's a little tone deaf that they kept all the white members of the team and replaced a green skinned alien with a black man. And I'll leave it at that. However, as it would turn out, Cyborg would actually be the breakout star of Justice League, becoming arguably the main audience surrogate that everyone else focused on. He did get a much bigger push than all the other members, not helped in fact by the writer's Jeff Johns' affinity for writing characters like Cyborg. Now, Johns was the writer of Justice League for the entirety of the New 52, and he is a very good writer. I arguably can't say that he's ever written anything that's objectively bad. On the other hand, though, he has a tendency to ignore other writers' works with the same characters for the sake of his story. And he also is notorious for his retcons. One such example of John's writing? In his Justice League series, he has Batman belittle the other Justice League spin off book, Justice League International, that was going on at the same time. But in that book, is not only Batman a member of that group, but he's also appreciative of their efforts. Another one of Johns' quirks is that he tends to excel at writing B-list characters and villains. And since the Justice League consists of mostly A-listers, you can see where there might be a problem. And speaking of B-listers and villains, I guess it's no surprise that the next most well-written character in Justice League was probably Lex Luthor. After the events of Forever Evil, Lex Luthor joins the Justice League, believing that there is a threat that only he, working alongside the Justice League, can help to defeat. Like I said, Johns excels at writing villains, keeping what makes them memorable, even while they have a heroic bent to them at the time. I know that Shazam and Captain Cold also joined, but Shazam did almost nothing during this time, and Captain Cold never actually joined the League. There was also a new Green Lantern, but she was fleshed out by other writers later. In conclusion, while a little bit uneven, the New 52 saga of the Justice League was at least memorable, and it did manage to go out on a high note with the story Darkseid War. And now, of course, we have to talk about DC Rebirth. Except I'm not sure what there is to talk about the DC Rebirth era of the Justice League. Since these were more or less recent comics I was talking about, I decided to ask a few people on Facebook about what their thoughts were about the New 52 and the current Snyder era of the Justice League, as well as everything that came in between. People had their thoughts on both the New 52 and Snyder's run. One guy even had some opinion on the Christopher Priest era that just preceded the Snyder era, but nobody had anything to say about Hitch's era of the League. Seriously, people, I went around looking for awesome images for Hitch's era of the League, and I got this one. And the fun part is, this isn't even from the rebirth era of Hitch's League. Hitch was writing a spin off book during the New 52, and this image is from that time. Hitch's run was extremely unmemorable compared to the New 52. Christopher Priest had a short run, like I said, after Hitch left. And while he did raise some interesting issues, there was no way that DC would have ever let him actually bring them to a satisfying conclusion, sadly. But hey, out with the old and in with the bold. After setting up things in the Event Comics Dark Knight's Metal and his 4-issue miniseries Justice League No Justice, writer Scott Snyder, along with his apprentice James Tynion IV, took over Justice League, and they tried to make it as epic as possible. After Dark Knight's Metal and Justice League No Justice, the current run is basically set up on the premise that the multiverse is dying and the Justice League hasn't really done a good job at stopping it. In the meanwhile, disillusioned from the events of Justice League No Justice, Lex Luthor has turned evil again and has put together a new Legion of Doom to actively push people towards their negative impulses. Like Jeff Johns, I can't actively say that Snyder is a bad writer. He's a very good writer. But if there's one flaw he has in his writing, it's the fact that he keeps, let's just say the word escalation comes in a lot. And that is personally one of the flaws I found with his run of the Justice League. The fact that the bad guys kept on winning and winning and winning, it just felt like there was no way that the Justice League could win. And in the end, they didn't. Yeah, Snyder's run ends with the Justice League losing to the Legion of Doom and them being successful in awakening the mother of the multiverse, Perpetua. And therein lies my problem with this run of the Justice League. It's going to get concluded in an event comic called Dark Knight's Death Metal or something like that. So basically this run was just a bridge between the two events. It wouldn't be as big a problem if Snyder was able to balance the scale properly. Instead, there is tons of exposition and not enough breathing room in his entire run. There are some epic moments, like this reference to Dragon Ball Z that was shown in, I think, the 6th Dimension arc. But still, I can't help but shake off the fact that Justice League was just a way for this story to pass through, instead of being the epic saga that it should have been. Well, anyway, while we wait for Death Metal to show up, Robert Venditti has taken over the reins of the Justice League, and while it's nowhere near similar in scale as Snyder's run, it actually feels pretty nice in its own way. Although sadly, at the end of the day, I think that, well, this run is basically filler, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not sure how much of an impact it will have over the overall history of the Justice League. And on that note, well, I might as well end this video. And thanks to everyone who helped me with this. And I got a pretty funny image that I'd like to show all of you and end this video with. Yeah, one of the guys I asked on Facebook actually gave me this image, and I just wanted to use it. So, well, that ends my retrospective on the Justice League. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, but see you all next time.